Hi, everyone. I'm Steve here with David Wright. Thanks for being with us, David.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
All right, we're going to talk about maybe how to start a workout program, how to advance in a workout program without injuring yourself. Because when you injure yourself, you set yourself back. It almost, if you're a beginner and you injure yourself, a month or two or three in, you got to start all over. So let me just say, David is a personal trainer at Fitness for 10 in Carson City, Nevada. And so you work with a lot of clients. I've been doing this since I was literally in grade school, lifting weights, putting weights on a broomstick, laying on the grass and bench pressing it, all the way up to owning multiple health clubs, which most of you know if you watch the channel. So, David, why don't you start and talk about, and I've done multiple interviews on this with some of our other trainers, but I think it's an important topic. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really important topic that a lot of people don't talk about or don't think about sometimes, especially if they're new to the gym or working out, that type of thing. I've heard a lot of different things, and we've talked about it as far as different information that's out there. Misinformation really about all sorts of things. And warming up and reducing injury is one of those topics where you'll hear a lot of people talk about, well, you don't necessarily need to warm up, or, you should only take X amount of time warming up. There's all sorts of different things out there. For me and for my clients, I find it very, very important to make sure, depending on what workout we're doing, or if we're doing full body, whatever the case might be, there always needs to be warm up happening. When I say warm up, I'm not talking about spending 20 minutes doing, cardio or different things. Cardio can be a great warm up to kind of get the legs moving, to get the heart pumping a little bit more, to just kind of get things raised a little bit. Short stint
So
of
David,
cardio.
you're talking about sport specific movement to warm up.
Correct.
Right.
And so then, going into, say, working out in general, any kind of training that we do here, I normally will have folks do, different shoulder mobility movements, or leg stretching, different things depending on what we're doing. But it's really important to understand that if we're going to start using different, we'll just say, for an example, I'm having somebody do a workout with a lot of, leg exercises, whether it's resistance training or different things. I'm going to make sure that their legs are ready for that movement, ready for that exercise. Because a lot of times what we do, even if you're not a sedentary person all the time, maybe you're up, you're walking around, you have an active lifestyle. When you come into the gym, or any place, to be honest with you, and you're going to do kind of more of an intense exercise, you want to make sure that those muscles are warmed up and ready for exercise. It's a lot different than being ready to get up and walk out of this chair right now, because you should be able to do that with no problem without having to stretch and do exercise. But when we're putting that extra pressure, we're putting all of that extra, weight or whatnot, whatever we're doing, we want to make sure that those muscles are nice and warmed up. Because as you and I both know, Steve, when we don't do things like that and there's a bunch of different ways to warm up, but when we don't do these types of things, our muscles are so tight most of the time. Okay. And so I use the term cold. They're not really cold, but they're just sitting there tight. And we start doing these different movements. That's an injury waiting to happen right there. So it's really important to be able to do these sufficient warm-ups that will help your body get ready for exercise.
Okay, so that's the first thing, is warm up. Let me add a few other things. Well, we'll start with one, and that is, and you guys hear me talk about this a lot on the channel if you're really watching, your recovery time has to match your intensity, your intensity level. How do you know? Well, as you get to be an experienced lifter, and I'm talking about lifting weights right now, your body will feel ready to go again. And I know you've gone through this, David. I'm ready to push again. I'm ready to have a good, intense workout that's going to line up with me. For instance, my age. I don't train super duper intensely, But what I do is I increase my volume. When I increase my volume, which means more sets, mostly more sets, that's going to overload my muscles more, as opposed to someone who's maybe younger and doesn't do as many sets, but takes the repetitions to failure. So that's the first thing. You've got to learn and when your body's ready to go, when it's recovered. And the goal is, or the trick, if you want to call it that, is to know how soon you can go again on a certain body part. And knowing, oh, you know what? My legs aren't quite ready to go again. My intensity level was really, really high in my last workout, which was Thursday, and maybe now it's Monday and you're still not quite ready. So you might skip a workout. And one other thing before I pass it back to you, David, because this is probably giving you some ideas, is if you feel something that doesn't feel right, if you feel something that doesn't feel like a sore muscle or a trained muscle, or you're feeling something on one side but not the other, that's a red flag. If you feel something in your left shoulder and you're feeling it when you start your bench press, that means stop. That means stop before you injure yourself. I'm not feeling it in my right shoulder, but I'm feeling it in my left shoulder. It's not even, which means there's something lagging behind, or there's something irritated with that joint or that muscle or connective tissue. That means stop and rest. You don't push through, well, my right side feels really good, so I'm just going to go. No. So, simple tip. If you feel something odd on one side or the other that doesn't feel like the other side, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and a lot of people will skip that. And to your point, oh, this other side feels great. Maybe it's just a some strange thing, and I'm just going to push through because the saying of just push through the pain, all these things. In my opinion, as a trainer and as a competitor who trains as well for myself, absolutely not. Because what happens is your body's giving you pain for a reason. To your point, there's your red flag. And especially if you're doing, bench press is a great example because there's a lot of shoulder injuries that occur with bench presses, not only if they're not being done properly, but also if we're just overdoing it in general for our joints. So it's not always a muscle issue. There's a lot of joint and tendon issues that go along with that. So people really have to realize, to your point, understand what you're supposed to be feeling. If one side has an issue, the other side doesn't seem to have, a pain or a odd, not so right feeling in it. Well, there's something going on here. You need to let this recover. And when I say recover, it gets back to your other point of, if you did, legs on Thursday and today's Monday, and you go, gosh, you know what, I'm on this schedule. And even for me, I'm on a schedule where every, 3 days I'm doing back, and then every 3 days I'm doing chest. So there's 2 days in between these. But if I go tomorrow and it's my day to do back, and I go, man, my back is it's super sore. Like it feels like I worked out yesterday and did it, even though it was 3 days ago. I've got to skip over that day. Additional recovery clearly is needed. I can go do something else. I could take a full rest day. That's the other thing that I want to talk about too, is not only kind of giving that body part, like if you're doing back or whatever might not feel completely recovered, you need to let it recover. But also listen, and this took a long time for me to really, not necessarily to understand, but to actually follow, was listen to your body completely. If you wake up in the morning and you go, gosh, I'm going to go work out legs today, but you wake up in the morning and your body is just drained still, maybe you're aching, you're hurting. It's just not, I'm lazy and I don't want to get out of bed, or I just don't feel like it. No, not that kind of thing. Your body will tell you, like, you will feel that fatigue. You will feel that soreness. There are days, and I work out most of the time 7 days a week. Now, that's not going to be everybody. My body's used to kind of that rhythm. Most people aren't going to work out 7 days a week. And a lot of times I have to force myself to say, hey, you know what? Take one day off, whatever the case might be. But if you have that feeling, don't go, oh, you know what, it'll pass. I'm going to chug some pre-workout and I'm just going to go hit the gym and it'll be fine. Your body's telling you to stop. And so you just need to take that day off. And some people aren't going to be the type that say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to listen, I'm going to go anyway. They may not go. And that's actually really, really good not to, because your body also needs that time to recover as well. So when you're doing nothing, now, does that mean you sit on the couch all day and do absolutely nothing? Of course not. But what it does mean is you need to kind of stay out of doing, probably the cardio in the gym and going and lifting weights in the gym. Do other activities outside of the gym probably would be the best for you. Whether it's walking your dog, walking down your neighborhood, going, doing something, stay active, do an active rest day. But that doesn't mean you have to be in the gym. So really look at those signs, because your body does throw up all sorts of red flags for you. You just have to actually acknowledge it and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to listen, because you're also going to have much better muscle growth that way, because your body's able to recover. If you have some potential injury or something that could become an injury, you're going to be able to recover that area to avoid that injury. Whereas if we just press through the pain, then this becomes a much, much bigger issue. And it doesn't even have to be the shoulder, but that's a very vulnerable spot for a lot of people. And, then you end up with all sorts of crazy stuff that you don't even want to get into, that can be permanent injuries. So it's very important to listen to what your body's saying and just sometimes take a rest and recover.
You made some really good points there. And, sometimes, like, if you're like me, and one thing you said, we're not talking about being lazy, because you can tell if you're just being lazy, right? But there's there's a mental thing there. If you're like me, if you're one of those people listening that are like me, I'm already thinking about what my workout's going to be like today. I'm already thinking about the sets I'm going to do and what exercises I'm going to do, and I'm excited about it. So if there comes a day when I mentally don't feel like working out, I don't want to do it, that's odd for me, because I always want to do it. I'm holding myself back and making sure I get enough rest. So if you're like me and you come to a day where you don't feel like doing it, you're not into it, that could also be a red flag that you need to take a day off, because you're not mentally into it. And if you're not mentally into it, there's probably a reason. Like you said, if people are more like us, because we don't want to skip a workout. And so it's very odd when you come to a day and you know what, I don't feel like going today. You probably shouldn't. And again, we're not talking about being lazy.
Right.
And then there's lots of things that you can do. Active recovery, take a walk around the neighborhood. But sometimes if I feel like laying on the couch on a Saturday and watching a movie, I'll do that, because I know there's a reason. Maybe I won't take my walk, or I won't do this, or I won't do that. So you just have to learn, and that comes with experience. I see you smiling there, because that comes with experience. When you go, you know what? Even my body feels great, but my brain doesn't want to do this. And that's another red flag that you should listen to, because when you don't listen to those signals, now you're at risk of injury. Again, I'm not saying, hey, Steve, I feel like that every day, so I'm going to lay on the couch every day. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So, David, if people want to get a hold of you, or they want to watch or go check you out, you are a competitor, they want to see your progress and what you're doing, what you're up to, how do they follow you on social media?
Yeah, so they can go to Instagram at davidwright_fitness, and also to @WrightFitnessTraining on Instagram for personal training.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Steve.